Hi, my name is Jeff, and this is the Gypsy Thread in depth. Now, why am I doing this? Well, that's a great question. A little while ago, Danny Orleans released his DVD set on the art of presenting magic to children. And I had never seen anybody do the Gypsy Thread for a platform audience. I'd always thought of it as a close-up trick, like you'd see Eugene Berger do. But this is a terrific set, by the way. It comes in here with 3 DVDs, and it's absolutely worth all of the reviews that people have said. He's the first person I've ever seen who did it using thread in front of a large audience. When he came down here to Silicon Valley, he lectured, and he did it in front of what must have been 150 people, and using Gypsy Thread, and it was very effective. So this got me kicked off into investigating what was the best thread that you could use. Now, I'd first learned about this a long time ago, but what I had heard is that you wanted to use basting thread. Here's an example on a website, and I apologize for the way that the computer screen looks at those lines. Anyway, what you typically run across in the United States, it's what's called American basting thread, and that's this stuff. Now, it's very thin, and it's easy to work with, but the thing that you learn with Gypsy Thread very quickly is you want to be able to take it and break it between your fingers easily, so that it's a very simple presentation in front of an audience. This American basting thread works extremely well, but the one thing is that as you look at it, it's really thin. So this wouldn't work for a platform audience. Let's take a look at some other options. One of the recommendations that I ran across on the cafe is what's called Japanese basting thread, which comes in a big bundle like this. Now, you have to ask yourself, why does it come in a bundle like this instead of on a spool like everything else we're used to? If you look up how the Japanese tailoring works, they would take this stuff, unwrap it all, cut it in half about here, and then hang it around their necks. And then whatever they wanted to, they could pull out one thing and then tack in a piece of cloth as they're working on a suit. So I thought, okay, that sounds great. There's a couple of importers that sell this in the United States. I got mine from this place called The Sewing Place at thesewingplace.com. They were very prompt and efficient, and I recommend that you buy some from there. It's inexpensive, but here's the thing. I took one of these bundles and opened it up, and then you take a lot of time undoing these little strands and threading them onto spools like this. And after doing this and doing this many of those spools, I still had this much of the thread left over. And you can see what happens is after it's been worked on a while, you end up having to go through this, find the end of the strand, pull it out, and then meticulously wind it by hand around one of these little spools, and then put the end in. If you ever wanted to feel like an orphan in a Charles Dickens novel, stuck in one of the sweatshops, I recommend you buy the Japanese basting thread. How does the Japanese basting thread work? Well, very, very easy. It snaps with very little effort like that. And the only real effort is getting it onto all these darn little spools when you turn them up. But the other thing is that this is just a little bit thicker than the American thread. So if you're willing to put up with putting it on the spools, it's a good choice. Sometimes I was looking up the Japanese basting thread, I turned up some German basting thread from this company named Gutermann. I hope I got that right. And you can see that this is made on its own reel, and it even has this little gadget here that holds the thread. Now, what's interesting about this stuff is it's sold in the United States. The Gutermann threads are sold in the United States, but as far as I can tell, there aren't any of the stores that carry them. You can get every kind of Gutermann thread except for the basting thread. Now, it works really well. Very easy to pop apart, just like that. So how do you get it? Well, it turns out that in the UK there's this one terrific company called Watson and Thornton, and you can see that they obviously are very proud of their heritage with the illustration of their old shop, and that's their website. But at the same time, you know, they're They did this. They've got a completely modern looking shipping envelope. And again, excellent customer service. This arrived very quickly through Royal Mail from the UK. I would absolutely recommend you go to these guys and order it from anywhere. They were very happy to, from their website, send it out by airmail. Get into some of the more interesting choices. After Danny Orlean's lecture, I asked him what he used, and he gave me a sample of it. And it turns out that it's this Aunt Lydia's crochet thread, and he uses fine number 20. He showed me this picture on his camera phone. So what crochet thread is, I'm not sure how well this will pick up on camera, but it is a very tough, fine thread. It's a little thicker than the other stuff. And you can break it with your fingers, but it takes a little more effort to do that. And one thing that, if you experiment with the Gypsy thread, you'll know that you end up, with the wrong threads, you can end up cutting yourself right here. So for me, this crochet thread is just on the edge of being able to break it comfortably. But FYI, that's what Danny uses. Another type of thread that was mentioned in some spot on the cafe is what's called candlewick thread. And I'd never heard this term candlewicking before, so a quick search in Google turns up a lot of pictures of these very traditional types of arts and crafts. And you can see all this fine needlework and so on. And so it turns out that this is a traditional type of sewing that is not that popular. So there aren't that many companies that make this. However, when I got this, you can see there's howsneedlework.com, and these days everybody's on the internet. So if you want to try some of this stuff, there's House Needlework's website, candlewicking patterns and thread, and sure enough, if we scroll to the bottom, the candlewick thread is 50 yards is only $3. Now, how well does this perform? It's actually pretty good. If you look at it closely, it's a little heavier and thicker than the others. And because it's soft, and it's this sort of unbleached, old-fashioned cotton, it's pretty easy to pop and pop a piece off. I find it easier than the crochet thread because the crochet thread is a very modern thread that's meant to be tough. So this stuff is actually pretty good. One more option I want to show you, and that's what Peter Samuelson recommends. Now, a little while ago, Peter Samuelson released through Bill Abbott this routine of his called Heartstrings, and I got a quick look at the package. Now, this is a typical Bill Abbott release. It's extremely well done. You get not only his script, but an MP3 of the music that he's included, a couple of videos of Peter Samuelson doing this in front of live audiences, every little bit you could ever wish for on his specific handling. It's very nice. But the question is, what is the thread that he recommends for visibility on a big stage? Well, it turns out it's this stuff. It's another form of crochet thread. But this is a heavier form than Danny Orlean's uses. And I don't know if you can hear this. This is very, very tough. Let me show you exactly what I think it takes for you to be able to break this. Because the first time I got this stuff out of the package, it just cut into my finger right there like that. So, there. Now I know Peter Samuelson does this on stage with his bare hands, and all I can say is, Peter Samuelson, I salute you. You're a better man than me. I thought it would be interesting to show you the difference between all of the different threads right next to each other. So from the top down, you can see this is the American one, and it's pretty small and thin, but it will work in a close-up situation. Then you have the Japanese basting thread, which you could kind of tell is a little thicker. Then you have the German basting thread, which is very similar to the Japanese, but maybe a little thicker looking on camera due to the color, or maybe if you took a micrometer, you could see that it is slightly thicker. This crochet fine stuff, this is what Danny Orleans recommends. It is usable, but it's a little tougher because it's a very modern thread and it's not designed to be broken by hand. The thickest of the lot is the candle wick thread right here. It's kind of hard to find. You can't pick it up at the store, but you can easily order it off the internet and it works well. And then down here at the bottom is the shredder from Peter Samuelson, which I can't recommend. If you want a single one-stop source for this, I don't think you can beat the Gutermann thread. And what you want to do is go to Watson and Thornton. Again, there's their website. They'll be happy to ship it to you.